My background is in psychology, not in business. So it makes perfect sense that when I'm thinking about franchises, I'm thinking about it from a psychology perspective, or at least from the perspective of human behavior. One really important question is, why is it that franchisors seem to be taking a lot of power over their franchisees? Why is it that people who join these franchisees end up saying things to me like, I think I joined a cult? Now, of course, I'm not calling the business practicing of franchising a cult. But what I am saying is that from the perspective of human behavior, when there's a major power imbalance, like there is in franchising, when the franchisor has so much power because of the imbalanced nature of that contract, and all of the franchisees are completely dependent upon the franchisor for their businesses to run, because they don't really ever know when that scary litigation could start or what might happen to them and their livelihoods if the franchisor is upset with them, you get this system of human behavior in which the people, the franchisees, are sucking up to the franchisor. You will have a lot of people who just really want to make sure that the franchisor is happy and pleased with them all of the time, because that's how they protect themselves. And makes perfect sense, right? They've signed these really dangerous contracts. The franchisor has a great deal of power over them. This is the boss of bosses. This is a job you can't just quit. If something goes wrong in this job, in your franchise, you might get sued by your boss and lose your home. So of course, once you find yourself in this situation and you realize maybe this wasn't really getting into business for yourself, but not by yourself, because in reality you're in a very dangerous contract and someone has a lot of power over you, then a lot of people are just going to do whatever they need to do to say good things about the franchisor and to keep the franchisor happy. And yes, of course, there are people who aren't going to follow that same pattern and don't do well with sucking up and maybe don't feel like was the best environment for them and are probably pretty upset that they signed a contract and found themselves in this place. But in general, you're going to have a situation where people are taking care of the boss of bosses. And when that's happening, it becomes very, very unpopular to say anything negative about the person with a lot of power, because people who aren't saying the right things about the powerful person, of course, might get in trouble. So for these reasons, when you join a franchise, it begins to behave like a cult. A cult is a situation in which when people leave or they express dissatisfaction, they're talked about as if there's something really wrong with them. They're spoken of very negatively, and the rest of the group works together to hold the status quo and to take care of the leader by saying good things about the leader all the time, regardless of what's really happening. And from a human behavior standpoint, what is really important to understand is that this is, behind the curtain, an indication of fear and an indication of a problematic power imbalance. And again, that problematic power imbalance occurs because the franchisor has more money than the franchisees. The franchisor has all the power in the contract. The franchisees are afraid of litigation. The franchisor is in charge of the franchisee's business to a great deal. The franchisor is the one setting the rules. The franchisee must follow them. Over and over and over again, the power imbalance leads to a situation in which the franchisors end up acting like cult leaders. And so, unless you're interested in becoming a fan of the franchisor in the franchise that you're looking at, and unless you're interested in buying a really bad job where you can't get away from your boss, because if you do, your boss might sue you and take your home, you probably don't want to buy a franchise. Frankly, I don't know too many people who would be interested in that. Who wants to pay for a bad boss?